Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin. Saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Welcome to another BritFlix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's guest are documentary filmmakers Iain Forsyth and Jane Pollard. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
We are here to talk about your new documentary, Broken English, as well as discuss 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Does that sound like what you signed up for?
It does, yeah. So far, no red strings.
Indeed.
Close enough.
Right then. Well, at the very top then, just before we get into discussion about the documentary, does one of you want to give what you would call a brief synopsis as to what it is before we get into the discussion about what happens in it?
It's a film made with and about Marianne Faithfull. It's hybrid. It's set in a constructed world, the Ministry of Not Forgetting. We tend to follow our instinct and use quite constructed techniques to sort of get to greater truths.
Yeah.
So Marianne's in the film all the way through, accompanied by actor George Mackay playing a dramatic cipher in the institution, the record keeper, and then sitting above them is Tilda Swinton, the overseer, who's sort of taking care of the recalibration of Marianne's legacy. Of course, Marianne Faithfull, renowned 60s pop icon, but particularly in England, her reputation has been completely broken and sort of messed up over the years and stuck, despite the fact she's been having a lovely life and had a sort of 60-year career with over 30 albums. Yeah.
And I would say the lovely life line literally was the one that I smiled. Like at that point in the film where she says, I've had a lovely life, when what you've shown us is how people tried to castigate her, bully her into whatever it was, criticize her for just having an opinion. And in and amongst all that, the real Marianne, not the media construct, was actually living her life, which is, it's almost satisfying. Don't you? You feel like, can you go away and do documentaries on other famous icons now and let us know the truth about them as well, because there is such a gap between a media construct and the person and how they led their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sorry. Yes, I think, Marianne sort of exemplifies that better than most.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's sort of true of everyone with a public profile of any kind, really. Rarely does the stories we tell about people match the realities of those people. But I think for us, what's really important is that a film like this isn't about somehow, that great phrase, peeling back the curtain.
Mm.
And sometimes there's a real impulse to feel that documentaries about people in public life should somehow peer behind the curtain and show something of the reality of their life. And I think we've always felt really strongly that that's just actually quite a reductive thing to do. It's quite an unrevealing, you end up with that sort of titillating moment where you see, David Bowie in the supermarket or whatever, but it doesn't tell you anything about that person. It doesn't tell you anything about that creative life and the life lived. So for us, these films are about staying in a creative world.
And the ministry of not forgetting, which is an interesting, forgetting versus remember is an interesting turn of phrase, because it made me think, what's the difference between forgetting and remembering in terms of what you were doing with this film?
Wow.
It's almost the kinetic energy of it. It feels like the act of remembering is a sort of passive drift, a sort of mulling over.
Right.
Bringing to mind all of these quite slow states of being, whereas not forgetting feels like the thing you put on your to-do list. It's something that you actively choose, or you're worried about the implications of forgetting. So there's a kind of active kinetic energy to it. There's something that's driving it.
Yeah, I think for me, it's sort of perhaps best explained by, if you think about, certainly in this country, the largest act of sort of collective remembering is probably Remembrance Sunday.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's a moment where we remember what happened. We wear our poppies and we remember, but it feels like we've very much forgotten what actually happened, the actual consequences, the actual lives lost. And nothing is really being learned from that remembering. I think if we were to not forget the consequences of, the 2 world wars that have already happened and the third one that's probably rapidly on its way, we perhaps benefit far greater as a society than simply remembering. Remembering isn't achieving anything. Let's not forget.
Yeah, it seems particularly pertinent or important where the information that's out there, the data that's out there, is so far from the actuality of somebody's legacy.
Yeah,
the real set of achievements, the number of albums, the tours, the working on, Brecht and Weill, the interpretations of other people's songs, the acting career that spans, 50 years as well. Like but the data that's kind of out there, the story that's been told and keeps being told, seems stuck in this Mick Jagger's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, Mick Jagger's ex-girlfriend, discovered by Andrew Loog Oldham. It's sort of, and I'll admit, before I watched the film, I was very much guilty of that just that reductive summary of a woman's life. And to find out 20 albums, let alone 6 decades, was a big surprise.
Yeah, I think we were too. We didn't come to this film as Marianne Faithfull fans. The impetus to make it wasn't because we really wanted to celebrate her. It came of, wait a minute, why don't we know? Why don't we know that she's done all of this stuff? And seeing, I think, a lot of the artists that we hold in super high regard, the Nick Caves, the PJ Harveys, that so many artists really hold Marianne up there as being the real deal. As a super important artist. And yeah, so it felt like fertile ground to kind of start from a place of not knowing, rather than starting from a place of thinking, or already knowing too much.
Yeah, because you give us that chink of light at the beginning, don't you? Which is the 2 albums, the folk one and the pop one. And she finds out to her surprise that the folk one was the more popular. And that, Andrew Loog Oldham, the pop Svengali, was saying this is the direction you need to travel. Whereas she's a woman who's coming to, making sense of her life and making sense of whatever creativity might do and lead her to. And obviously she got more from making the folk album, from what we understand now from the film.
Yeah. I mean, that was the findings of those. So the first thing we did when we took the film on was to move as quickly as we could to film 3 days with her, because I was failing. And that's all of the scenes that you see with George Mackay.
Yeah.
And we filmed on camera, on 3 cameras simultaneously. They run as long takes. We did 9 sessions, 3 sessions per day, each about an hour long, each with a particular topic and a set of archive associated with it. And then we'd rest her in between and play with George.
I was going to say, I mean, that's with it being that kind of meta sort of hybrid documentary where there's drama as well as investigation and research happening literally side by side in those moments. What do you do? I mean, obviously you've got to manage Marianne as the subject of this, but George is playing a role, but also doing a job for the documentary at the same time. How did you get him to do that sort of dance between what's needed and what will look good on camera, so to speak?
I mean, we're very fortunate that we knew George very well by the point that we filmed together, and we'd worked together quite a lot. So we kind of understand his approach and his methodology as an actor.
Got you.
But I think we've also just got to know him so well as a person that we kind of felt very strongly that he would have the skills and the sort of, what would you call it, the soft skills to be able to, you know, slip in and out of character. I mean, it's an extraordinary role in that he's sort of playing a character, but he is sort of being himself. You know, the curiosity that you see, the kind of genuine interest that you see from him.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the character's enthusiasm and interest, but it is also George, you know, as an actor, he's so inquisitive and he's so, you know, the levels of research he does for all his roles is immense. And, you know, just knowing that about him, we knew that we could kind of rely on him, really.
Yeah, because I mean, just on a very crass level as a comparison, me trying to impersonate myself doing an interview with you as a performance of an interview just makes my head explode.
Yeah. Now imagine you've got us in your ear.
Yeah. Telling you how rubbish you're being. Stuart, just relax a bit, mate.
Now, one of the things that comes out of it, which is parallel with Marianne's story, I think, and a bigger message I've found generally about how media works and how, I guess, misogyny and the male dominance of narrative. I mean, many of the one-on-one interviews, I mean, from what I remember, apart from the Terry Wogan interview, seemed to be coercing her or telling her who she is or what to do. Like, no matter what she said, they never listened to a word she said. And I think that's a bigger reveal about the way media works as much as it is about Marianne's story. I think that's a big part of the film for me.
Do you know, we didn't remember Russell Harty being such a
horrible, wasn't he?
Rick.
Yeah.
I mean, like, whoa. I remember as a child watching that show and yeah, it didn't, I mean, obviously times are different. Things have changed. We know that. But we could have, that little sequence we cut together that sort of allows the audience to draw their own conclusions. You know, we're not telling you that you know, look at how badly she was.
We're leading the witness.
Yeah, we are leading the witness. We're very much leading.
Yeah.
But that section could have been 4 or 5 times that long. It was incredible how much footage there was of, you know, we could have had 10 people saying, I just need to ask you about Mick Jagger. just one more question about Mick Jagger. What do you think Mick would think about? And it's wow. You know, this is like way years and years, decades beyond their relationship. I mean, I remember hearing a radio interview. We didn't use it in the end, but a radio interview and it was a genuine, quite a warm introduction to her, but it was one of the albums like Kissing Time, where she's loads of collaborations. You know, there's Jarvis, Damon Albarn, all of these, Beck, all of these people writing for her, singing with her. And the interviewer lists them all off and it is like, why do you think they all want to work with you?
Right, yeah.
And it is so like, how are all these?
Weren't you lucky? I think is the sort of tone.
And yet, I found. I mean, what's amazing about all of in the context of all of that, and obviously she's lived her life, so she lived every minute of these things, is how I loved her optimism that comes through all the time. She's forever she's never feels browbeaten. You go, Christ, that took me down. But she's, the ideas about the group mind and feeling like she's included in part of something that's a movement. Not I'm the one leading it, or he's the boss, or she's the one. It's like I'm part, which felt like for me, it felt like she was describing like an inclusive version of William Burroughs' Third Mind, like this idea that we're moving forward together, not I'm winning the race.
Yeah, it was such a revelatory way, I think, for us to hear about and think about that period. Is the period that instantly people gravitate towards with Marianne, the time that she was with Mick and around the Stones and around that group of people, and her friendship with Anita Pallenberg, and that's always where people gravitate towards. But I genuinely had never thought of it in the context that Marianne gave us, talking about time with her father at Braziers Park,
and those two bits, the bit about Braziers Park and the bit about the Stones, they were different sessions when we originally filmed them. They were different. I think they were even on a different day, but it was like in the process of kind of trying to find the film and of digging into all of this stuff with Marianne and George, it suddenly new connections were made, like really important new connections were made. That connection between the group mind of Braziers Park and the group mind of the Stones. When she said, I guess that's what I saw there back in that room with those guys. But she.
I mean, her resilience is phenomenal, but the amount that continued to be thrust at her was just unthinkable.
I mean, I must admit, I feel like I found a new hero watching your film. It's like that. Is that sort of revelatory about a person for me?
Yeah,
but I mean, as she says in
we felt that too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, as she says in the film, when George asks her what it does to you when things like that happens, and she said, I attempted suicide. That's what it does to you.
Yeah.
Even someone with the level of resilience and optimism of Marianne, which is, a Herculean amount of, resistance that she's able to put up. Even she was driven, more than once to the edge of her life. And I mean, that's, so many less resilient people would have.
And with you making that discovery about her, and obviously, sadly, she passed while the film was unfinished.
Yeah.
What, I mean, this sounds like a ridiculous question. What impact does that have on the film then? You've sort of grown this relationship and this appreciation of her, and then it's come to an end and you're still in the middle of trying to tell that story.
Yeah, we were very lucky to be very close to the end of the edit. Yeah. We only had Tilda left film, and we would all been leaving that to the last, so that she could weave everything together as accurately, as neatly as possible. But to have not got to show Marianne the whole thing, that hurt. It really hurt. She saw pieces of it. She loved her performance. She saw some of the other performances. But I'd love to have been able to share it with her and to share the thing that's happening now, which is a recognition, an eye-opening kind of, appreciation of her as an artist. Which she just had to kind of, I mean, she left the UK is what she did. She went to Ireland first and then to Paris. Yeah. And she got on with stuff. She got on with making her work. And over in Europe, she's really appreciated. It is not, she didn't get stuck. It's nowhere near as grim as it has been here.
I mean, it was, there was some very tricky conversations around what do you do when that happens, when Marianne passed away. And, to begin with, it was obviously just a very emotional, we become pretty close, and it felt like
I can imagine
a dear friend. But the moment you sort of get back to work and you're thinking, okay, so how do we deal with this? And different people were throwing in different ideas, and there's all the sort of obvious, like, do you put some sort of tribute at the beginning or some sort of, classic, dates and the sort of obituary type. And all of that just felt like so not in the spirit of the film that we were making, and not in the spirit of, Marianne, in every frame of that film, is very much alive. And it felt like to try and frame that around her passing was just disingenuous, really. So in the end, what I think we're fortunate to be able to do was to come up with this device where, we have the very slightest acknowledgement of it. There's just that moment where Tilda has a couple of sentences about it. And really, I think, in all honesty, I think that is the only thing that really changed in the film as a result of Marianne passing away.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't change any of the cuts. Anything that was talked about, everything stayed in, even the stuff that plays, it plays a little more tragic now because you understand that she died and hasn't survived. But I think we just felt like we'd entered into that endeavour together with her present, and we should kind of stay true to that. And I think the thing we felt most adamant about was giving her the last word. Like that scene, the performance, she had to be the last thing. We could. There was no way we were going to kind of put her name and her dates or anything after that. It was, she's there. She's so alive in that scene. She's so incredibly present. You just don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to take that away from her. But you know, Stuart, the unfortunate truth, and this has been a really hard film to make. It's sort of we've had some bad luck with our initial funder closing film division, and it has been pretty hard. But the one thing that her passing did do was kind of prove to a world that a lot of people took her very, very seriously. I mean, it's a bitter truth that it takes a female artist to die before the kind of metrics on social media kind of rise high enough that it's actually there might be an audience for this film. And which is, I think, why we kept, maybe some of the Tilda speeches became a little more peppered with vitriol because of that. We passed some of that. You pass some of that anger, that through, and hope that it speaks powerfully enough to to a new generation who will be thinking about legacy and thinking about making films about female artists or just great artists, and realizing that we shouldn't wait until they're not here.
Absolutely.
And
how can people see the film then?
So we are released in the UK theatrically on the 20th of March. That's our release date, but we have a launch event at the Barbican on the 18th of March, which will be a preview screening of the film, and then followed by a live performance from a number of Marianne's former bandmates, collaborators, and admirers. And
it's like a super group of my dreams. Rob Ellis, who composed for the film but was also Marianne's producer, Ed Harcourt, co-writer with Marianne from her band, Adrian Utley from Portishead, Colin Greenwood from Radiohead, Anna Phoebe on violin. It is a dream team arrangement.
And then a number of guest vocalists doing some of Marianne's songs.
Well, I will put links in the show notes to that event.
Thank you.
And it just gives us to move seamlessly along to 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Are you ready for this?
Absolutely. I mean, this is essentially why we make films. We make films because I want to understand what it was in Marianne's life or in Nick Cave's life that transformed them. What it was that shaped them and made them kind of pursue a creative path. Like it's this is the nuts and bolts of everything.
Absolutely. And then our personal biography, consuming the stuff and what it does to us is... Yeah. I mean, I remember Bob Dylan getting asked an interview, like, where the interview said, how do I write a song like you? And Bob just took a beat and he went, well, you'd have to read all the books that I've read, meet all the people that I've met in the same order, in the same weather. And he just listed all these conditions, which obviously are the variables of life that you could never hope to replicate. So that's what makes this a fun thing to do. So we get 5 minutes per film. And every time we hear this sound, that means 5 minutes are up. Okay. So...
I feel quite triggered by that because that's my morning alarm.
Well, we promised to keep each other awake then. Right then, starting off with the first choice, we're going for 1997's Nil By Mouth, written and directed by Gary Oldman and starring Ray Winstone and Kathy Burke. The latter gives us one of the greatest acting performances I've seen in UK cinema, as the literal punchbag for the rough, short-tempered patriarch of a working-class family whose life just unravels around him. Gary Oldman put $1.4 million of his own money into this film. And weirdly, a bit like, and this was, when I was doing the research for this, a bit like watching your movie, I've always thought Nil By Mouth was a kind of loose biopic. And in 2014, Gary Oldman said, I'm tired of the media claiming this. He said, this is from the horse's mouth. He said, the character's not my dad. My mother never got beat up. That character's a composite based on someone I went to school with. It's not a personal story, but that's what the media wanted, which I thought was, I mean, I've had my own little revelation just on that, but tell us, why does Nil By Mouth have such an impact on you and why does it last in the memory?
It was the film it was where life and art kind of intersected. We were living in New Cross at the time that this film was filmed. We used to drink in the pub. We walked past the places that it was made. And this is around the time that we'd just come out of Goldsmiths Art School. And I think that had an enormous impact, that kind of proximity of living somewhere where something so powerful had been made. Obviously, we didn't kind of know it until we saw it. It's also, I think, the only film that I've never managed to watch every frame of. There are bits in it that I find so hard to see that I have to look away from the screen.
But you will watch it again, though, so to speak.
God, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's like, how powerful is that you have to keep coming back, but you can't always look at the screen.
It's almost impossible to describe, I think. The performances in that film are just so extraordinary that, as a director and working with actors and, trying to elicit performances and truth in performances, as we do, to see something so just raw, and I don't mean in terms of the subject matter, I mean literally in terms of the emotion on screen. Those performances are so raw and just...
But you sense that Kathy Burke, you sense that Ray Winstone, that they are tapping into something that they know. I'm not saying that those characters were in any way autobiographical or of their story, or that even that's where they've come from, but that is a world they witnessed. That's like Gary said, it's somebody you went to school with. You can feel that they understand fundamentally the nature of those characters.
Yeah, and I think in terms of perhaps what it most overtly did for us as creative people, filmmakers, artists, as we were at the time, whatever, is that it opened up that question about the idea of a truth and the truth. I think, within that film, there are so many truths encapsulated that may not follow a biographical truth of any single particular individual. But my God, that film is a truth writ large.
Yeah. Yeah. It just takes my breath away, even thinking about thinking about Ray Winston on the stairs. It's like, yeah, pieces where I'm like,
I think as well. I mean, I certainly didn't grow up in a household with any near the level of violence, but what I think it does brilliantly, which I often find gets missed when you shine a light on what you would call working class life or working class culture, is that even despite the grimness of what might be a lot of the lived experience, there is still time for levity. There's still time to actually enjoy life. In the middle of all that, as you would think of as a living nightmare, actually, there are moments, where you escape that. Whether that might be just a couple of pints of lager, it might just be a little joke over as the film does end on its own. Oh, there's our first 5 minutes.
Wonderful.
Wakey.
Right. For your second choice, we are jumping to 1973's dark comedy, farce, satire, surreal odyssey, Oh Lucky Man, directed by Lindsay Anderson and co-written by Liverpool-born, which was news to me only recently, star Malcolm McDowell and screenwriter David Sherman, reuniting the triumphant collaboration of 1968's If. It's the unlikely story of an ambitious coffee salesman, Mick Travis, setting off on his optimistic pursuit of a capitalist dream that descends into a Kafkaesque nightmare, underscored by Alan Price's musical commentary. In France, the title of the film translates to The Best of All Possible Worlds, which is apparently a refrain from Voltaire's novel Candide, upon which the movie was loosely based. I didn't know that, to be honest. Virtually every member of the cast played multiple roles, and it's McDowell's favourite movie of all the ones he made. So tell us, why does this have an impact on you two, and why does it stay in the memory?
It's so hard to articulate. It lit a fire in us. It's dizzy heights of ambition, the breadth of its kind of allegorical structure, the nerve of its kind of the Greek chorus of bringing Alan Price and the songwriting inside the film as a kind of narrative baton.
Yeah,
like so many things about it that the actors playing multiple roles, where it just it wins me with how absolutely out there it is, how far it was reaching. And again, when we go to rewatch it, and we often, when somebody asks us to pick a film to be screened, we'll pick this one because of and then when I get to watch it again, I am always reminded of how much of it has dated really badly and how there are really dodgy scenes in it. But yet it was a gift to us, I think.
Yeah, it was a film school, having never gone to film school.
Okay. In what way?
I think so many of the ideas that it's jostling with are so complex, yet fundamental to the nature of storytelling.
Yeah.
I think storytelling perhaps more than film to be more accurate. But just returning to it, we must watch it once a year at least. And quite often watch it in the early stage of a new project. It just, every time I see it, it just says to me, be bolder, push harder.
Yeah.
Be
think
better.
Further. Yeah. Yeah, it's like some kind of astonishing kind of jazz composition. It's so audacious, and it's the audacity. It's Lindsay Anderson, Malcolm McDowell's, and David Sherman's audacity in it, like where they're pushing it. And you can see very obviously its influence on us. The opening scenes, the opening titles, with Alan Price and the band playing "Oh Lucky Man." The almost the whole of The Extraordinary Miss Flower kind of is rooted in something that's happening in that scene and how that functions. The breaking of the kind of meta, you see the film crew, you see the whole crew kind of cast party, rap party at the end of it. Like, oh my God, like that we played that out in our work again and again, that kind of where you place the frame, where you break the frame, how things are working.
I mean, it pushes so hard at the edges, you know, what you can do and what you can't do and what you should and shouldn't do. But I think, for me, I also really appreciate and really take a lot from the fact that it doesn't all work. Yet there they all are, still just pushing at the edges and playing and saying, well, what can a film be? What can a story be? And for me, in terms of inspirational, you know, something that's had an impact on my life, I would say the failings as much as the successes in that film always remind me to push at the edges, whatever the consequences.
There's our 5 minutes. Almost like you knew it was coming. But I know, I think you hit on something there, which it's like they're aware they're making a film, and that doesn't become a constraint on what they do, which I don't know if that makes perfect sense, but it's they're not trying to depict real life. They're trying to have fun with what they can do with a camera. And I think some of that, like you say, when it gets wrong, is they're pleasing themselves, and it's like, well, you know, we still had fun doing it. So there's a, you know, as artists, there's a process as well as an outcome, isn't there? And I'm sure they had an absolute riot making this film. Right then, final choice. We have got Sarah Connochan's and Howard Smith's Marjoe, the 1972 Oscar-winning documentary that explores the life of one-time child evangelist and faith healer Marjoe Gortner, the son of professional evangelist. Gortner was preaching on the Southern Tent Revival circuit from the age of 3, which, I mean, I say this with surprise because I've not seen this documentary, so I'm in your hands now. The film was not shown in most southern states due to the distributors' fear of outrage it would cause. Marjoe's father, who appeared in one scene, was unaware of the true nature of the documentary. And then I was looking for like comments on the film as I've not seen it. And Frederick and Mary Ann Brussett of Spirituality and Practice said about the film, no doubt many religious folk will be offended by the cinematic expose of the Jesus business. Others will nod their heads, having confirmed their beliefs regarding the moral bankruptcy of the entire church and tent revival circuit. The film's conclusion indicates that God is able to deliver Marjoe from this world of religious addiction. That in itself is a miracle. The unresolved question is whether those he preached to will ever see the light. And I thought, well, that's me, and I want to see it. So tell me, why does this film have such an impact on you, and what memories does it hold?
I'm going to hand over to the son of a preacher man here.
Okay.
I mean, the subject is, you know, Marjoe himself is just such a compelling character. And, you know, as you say, he was preaching from the age of 3.5. I think he was ordained at 4 or something like that.
First marrying somebody at 6. Yeah.
And he worked the revival circuit with his parents as a child and was, what was he called? He had a nickname, the Little Preacher. I think that was his nickname. And he became this kind of childhood phenomenon. For the film, we meet Marjoe in his 30s when he's sort of left that life behind and moved on. And he goes back to the circuit to, I mean, perform, I guess is the only word for it, really, isn't it? To perform his act as a preacher one last time with a film crew. So that's when we meet him, and that's the journey we go on. And as we journey through the revival tents and the meetings that he leads, he explains to us the techniques and the methods and the strategies that he was taught by his parents.
So he's showing us Oz behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah. He is literally pulling back the curtain of the revival tent.
Yeah.
And here's how you pump the money machine.
And what works, the two things that work so incredibly well for me is he's wired, his person as a person, he's electric and wired, and you can tell that he's damaged from his upbringing, but he's also driven to attempt to overcome it or to at least expose elements of it.
Yeah.
Because he was like a sideshow act. He was really literally kind of raised and trained and toured around like a sort of, part of the carnival or something. And the other thing is the way in which he talks to camera and the way in which he includes the camera. So it's a very small crew, and he has to indoctrinate them into a way of being, so they'll be accepted by the tents of people and the ministries, and so there's this I think it is my favorite scene, the scene where they're all sitting in his room and he's basically going, you need to like cut your hair, you've got to stop smoking, you can't, and he's just and it's like that connection with camera, that kind of complicity, that's the word I'm looking for, the complicity with which the subject is also the kind of director inside the film. Yeah, I think that's what gets me every time, is that you feel so sort of close to it. So then when he takes to the tents and he's doing those Mick Jagger moves up and down the aisles, and they are stolen from Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
It's jaw-dropping when you see the kind of the techniques and the tricks that he's talked about.
Finish your thought, Jay.
It's really, you have to watch it. You just have to watch it. Yeah. And I think that particularly maybe it's because it comes close to lots of things that we're interested in music, that the idea of the kind of construct, the preacher, the prophet, that role that musicians can take on, and power that they can have over an audience. And, we see it again and again with different musicians like Johnny Cash, who were obsessed with evangelical preaching and looked at those techniques.
I mean, if there's a Venn diagram, there's a huge overlap between the rock star and the evangelical preacher, right? Yeah. The techniques are very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch it.
Brilliant. Look. That brings us to the end of 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Thank you for sharing those stories and that insight into the impact film has had on you. Let us remind the listener, when and how can they see Broken English?
It's out in UK cinemas on the 20th of March. And just before that, on the 18th, Wednesday the 18th, we're hosting a huge event at the Barbican, which is going to be streamed to cinemas around the country. That is a preview screening of the film, followed by a musical extravaganza of Marianne songs with a supergroup lineup of musicians.
Indeed. And like I said before, I will put links in the show notes, and it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your time on the Britflix podcast.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks. And you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here. If you like today's show, why not check out Malt and Magic, a D&D podcast where things are almost literally homebrewed. Malt and Magic is a show that focuses on the immersive and collaborative natures of TTRPGs, working with a cast of amazing characters to create an epic hub where fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, horror, and cyberpunk all collide in one gripping, funny adventure. If you'd like to hear more, check out our website at podderation.com.